Thank you. The floor is open for questions. I'm going to start with one for Katrine. What kind of lessons might there be that we can learn from organizations such as the Children's Oncology Group in the U.S., which 40-ish or so years ago had some of the same challenges you did and seems to have been a very effective organization, and there are probably others. So what are you taking from other situations and diseases that can help us all as a community work with you?
Sure. So one of the most exciting things that I learned along the path, in fact, when we met with the regulators, is that, you know, when I thought about this process of an entity in the field taking charge of a prioritization list, that was completely out of this world. And in fact, there is a precedent where the WHO has a list of high priority antiviral medications for HIV medicines for the development in children, based on their, you know, their pharmacokinetics, that they can be taken once or twice a day. And because in that area, apparently also, a lot of pediatric requirements get triggered. And if you were to have to follow up on each one, there just wouldn't be enough children with HIV in this country to be able to conduct all of these studies. And so there are other areas where there is already an effort to, you know, have a community effort. I mean, I wouldn't say WHO's community, but to have an external point of reference for what is important to get done to really meet the needs of the community.
Great, thank you. Are you guys that hungry? Okay, please.
Unbiased body potentially lining up the relevant, you know, priorities, that the pediatric requirement would go away for the other drugs that don't necessarily have as a high priority applicability. Maybe it's that third phosphate binder or that fourth IV iron or that fifth. Why the requirement for continuing that? I know there's the carrot and the stick, but if there's that remaining stick, then will anybody listen to what's that prioritization list? So.
Well, that's really a question to the FDA, right? I mean, they're held by the law to have to enforce these pediatric requirements, but so I can't preempt their response. Elisa?
So we have, as you may have noted, our colleagues from the Division of Pediatric and Maternal Health, and Lynn Yao, who leads it up. She's been a part of this discussion. And I think we do need to understand how the community wants to prioritize the development of these drugs. I think it would be factored into our thinking, but it's hard to say more than that. But we are very interested in what this group is doing. I just want to make one other quick comment. I think that these projects, the last two that you heard about, are really critical projects. I think that they're addressing populations that are largely ignored or are an afterthought, and yet there are also populations in which it's really challenging to figure out if the drugs are safe and effective. So I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing on this.
And likewise, we really appreciate your collaboration with us and your enthusiasm for this project.
I should learn to shut my mouth. Mambo number 5. It's working.
No more singing, Foco.
No songs. So would it help if for these, where there are not simply even enough patients in the total population to do it by the book, would it help if longitudinal studies would be available, non-obtrusive, so that you would have less patients, but you would know more about them? Would that help?
Well, I think anything will help. And you know, there is evolution in some areas where the FDA has allowed the sponsor to do studies that focus specifically on safety rather than requiring a controlled study, for example. So yes, I think we do have to look at you know, what really are the most important needs of information to inform pediatricians. The observational, I think, I haven't seen it be meeting the requirements. So at this point, you know, at least in my own experience, we're still dealing with trials.
talk, you had some very interesting observations about trying to figure out how to navigate the space between cardiologists and nephrologists. And I'm kind of curious, Julie, about your perspective and what you think you can do to engage these stakeholders. And, you know, because not everybody's a Chuck Herzog. So, you know, what's the challenges for you?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I think that this has definitely been a learning experience for me, just to learn more about clinical trials, especially from the perspective of cardiologists. So, for example, when we started this project, we had an invitation to go to the CVCT forum, and that's a major meeting for cardiovascular trialists. And from my perspective as a nephrologist, I was there with some other like small community nephrologists, but from our perspective, we're sort of in the cardiologist's house, and we have this great opportunity to learn from people who are really expert in the field. And I think it's been fun to actually learn about the challenges they face and the successes that they face and how we can actually bring that to change the culture in nephrology.
Good. Terrific.
Is this thing?
It'll be in a second.
Good. Help us in the nephrology world understand how to wend our way between devices and drugs. You in the cardiology space are full of brand new, fun, and exciting devices. But in the FDA monitor, some of these devices are handled by one branch of the FDA, and the drugs are then handled in another group. How have you in cardiology solved that problem?
I don't think we have. I think that what we've had is target populations that look appealing to sponsors, and then we have populations like the ones that we all take care of in this room that have not been appealing. And I think that the paradigm shift has to be, there has to be some handicap from the regulators to acknowledge that it's hard to do clinical trials in certain groups, and there should be some acknowledgement that says, yes, we're going to give you a handicap here and make it a little easier, otherwise progress will never occur.
Let me broaden that question to the FDA members who are sitting here. Sorry, Carolyn. At what point does, for example, with a catheter, is it in the device area, and at what point is it in a drug? I mean, these issues are really a stymieing point for nephrology research, and it would be interesting if your work group in the cardiovascular area would include this as one of your targets. Caroline, sorry, I apologize.
Oh, if I talk, it goes on. Okay. Well, that's sort of a decision that's made in our Office of Combination Products, where if a device is coated with a drug, we look for the primary mode of action related to it, or where the primary uses of the device. It's also based on regulations. Is it in or on the body of man, which also influences it? There's a number of factors that go into that decision and who takes the lead, a drug or a device or a combination product that both parties participate together with one lead center. So I can't give you one single answer because each product is individual, and when it comes in, we do that evaluation.
So, for example, in the cardiovascular space, where's Jenny Flythe? Is she still sitting here? Oh, right in front of me. If you'd been a snake, you would have bitten me. Thank goodness you're not. So you're doing studies in dialysis patients with echoes, and if you want to get those procedures approved, are you using microbubbles for bubble echoes versus just regular echoes, and how would you get that approved in the kidney space? Because using what's approved in the cardiovascular world to be able to use bubble ultrasonography, is already proven in the cardiology space, but not in the nephrology space. And trying to figure out how to do that is not straightforward. Many of you are already in this space, and perhaps you guys know the answer to this already. But it'd be great to figure it out.
We've not been approached in this area, in the device area space. I don't know about in drugs.
It would be really nice to learn from you cardiologists how you have gotten this done, because I think we could learn a tremendous amount from you as well in this space.
So let me make one comment back to you about this. There's several different layers of harmonization that could happen, that could help. One of the challenges when you're talking about drugs versus devices in the FDA is that the statutory requirements, the way the law is written, there are actually some significant differences. So it's kind of a challenge. But I will tell you that at the highest levels, the folks at the FDA were more than willing to sit down. It's why they're represented at Key. It's why Carolyn Newland's spending time here, Eliza Thompson's spending time. And if there are things about endpoints or design that you think could be useful across both centers, they're certainly open to that discussion. I think one of the challenges for harmonization was mentioned by Katrina, and that's harmonization across countries, where if you have rare populations, you really want the same designs that are useful between Europe, Australia, US, Japan, and those can be very challenging, but I think there's been a real openness and willingness to have those discussions, and I think Key is a place where that can happen.
I understand. I obviously have in complete agreement since I've been doing this for a while. What I'm hoping for is to learn from the cardiologists who absolutely have solved this issue way better than we nephrologists have. I've been forced to deal with this. And you're absolutely correct. The FDA has been hugely helpful. But to copy what you have done in cardiology in coupling this space, I hear the regulatory issues. You have forged a path in this regard from somebody who's done 50-something thousand echoes. You guys have forged a path in this regard. It would be really nice for you to teach us how to do it. Seriously, that's not just a help.
Any comments, Charles? Okay, fine.
He's being bashful. You've been a big advocate on these work group calls for bringing this community together of cardiology and nephrology to perhaps not be as prescriptive as Dr. Falk is in terms of things, but
So I'll
you see the real value.
So I'll make a comment.
I'm going to call you out.
I'll make a comment on that. Okay, this is a selfish comment. I'm very pleased that KDIGO is now a KHI member. This is their first year here, because I'm a big supporter of interdisciplinary type work, which KDIGO and other groups endorse. It's unusual to have a conference where you have half cardiologists and half nephrologists sitting down. This actually doesn't usually happen. I think there needs to be more of that. I mean, just look at for those of you who have been industry consultants, when was the last time you had an advisory board that was half cardiologists and half nephrologists? I guarantee you that's not going to happen very often. It never happened to me, So the point is, I think it's time to think about interdisciplinary models anyway, because this is, advanced kidney disease is a high cardiovascular risk group, and until the specialties sit down together, another thing that cardiologists do now in treatment of heart disease is, we talk about heart team approach. We really need something very similar for cardiovascular disease and CKD. It's really a team approach that brings together a lot of medical specialties and patients and providers and pharmacists, social workers, and basically people related to delivery of care, because otherwise it's very hard to be very smart in this area because it's an interdisciplinary problem.
We are running behind. We'll take the last question, comment, and call it.
Okay, same place, Washington. In 1 month, ASIO will be here. And there you have a bunch of very innovative cardiologists, nephrologists, people from industry, and they're all going to sit together. So, and we even have faculty from ASIO here. So this question should be on the KHI session during ASIO, and we'll have the people there. And technologists even humbly there. So that would be good to have that question put there.
Good comment to end on. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the panel.